Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
I am Coach Tom.
We are Team Binge. We are here to talk with you and to each other, and really just to the world, about Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episode 8, which is called We'll Never Have Paris. I believe that is a play on Casablanca, where all lives have Paris. Is that correct? Is that the quote? Am I touching something?
Oh, I have no idea where this comes from. Casablanca doesn't sound right.
Okay, well, I'm sure you'll cut audio from something and plug it in here just to prove me wrong. That seemed to be a real hit with the world. Our audience of millions loves to watch Julian be wrong, so that's fine. I'm just trying to run a podcast here, Tom. It's nice to bring you on as a guest and have you run all over me with your truth. You know what? I'll just get to it now. My truth is my truth. You know, I can determine whatever it is at any time. And I say We'll Never Have Paris is based on a line that was in Casablanca. Thank you very much.
I always thought it was from Finding Nemo, but I could be wrong.
Oh, that's most certainly wrong because they are in Australia. So I gotcha. Release the gotcha girls because I got Tom. All right. Let's not waste any time. This is a very important episode. We have a lot to say about it as two married men. Any episode that is a PSA on nude photos being sent, I feel like this is a corner that we can explain, talk about a lot, and really expand on. And people want to hear our opinions, Tom. I can feel it. I can feel the energy in the universe that they want to hear us talk about this. So let's avoid it at all costs and just start talking about this episode. I typically ask you your temperature, not your real temperature, but your TV viewing temperature. Where were you at on this episode, Tom?
It was cold, man. This was not a fun episode to watch, if I'm being honest. Like, we've talked about it before. The length of these episodes, I think, does the show a disservice. I think if they're much tighter, 30 to 35 minutes, it pushes the plot along. It's more fun. There's more comedy in it. The storylines we get here are like these weird, kind of old social justice-y style storylines with what we see with Keeley, and I think it's all fair and it's valid, and they're interesting things maybe to talk about, but the way it just gets jammed into the show for the sake of filling time is just unnecessary. And I think you had mentioned it. This whole relationship with Keeley and Jack is just seemingly a means to an end. And it was just dragged. It wasn't nearly as fun as we've had with previous episodes. And I was honestly bummed.
Okay. I think those are all fair points. They're all wrong. I loved this episode. This is my favorite episode. And these are subjects I love talking about. Nude photos being hacked and shared I've long been, actually I can't run that joke. I was going to say long been a proponent, but I think I get thrown in jail then. So that was a joke for those of you at home. We sometimes, there's a little bit of comedy in this podcast. You got to search for it. You got to look long and hard for it. But much like those leaked photos, you can find it if you look for it. Anyways, I'm with you, Tom. We'll talk about it, but there's the locker room scene in the middle of this episode, and I was like, what am I watching? Did I stumble upon an after-school special? Like, what is being... Anyway, and I also am starting to wonder, I love the show, I love the positivity, I love character growth and people being like good people, but I'm starting to wonder if anyone who writes for this show ever stepped foot in a locker room full of dudes, because there's some questionable judgment that happens in a locker room full of dudes. But
yes,
let's run through it. I know you're tired and you already took your 3 sleeping pills, so let's run through it. All right, we start off with what we want to see. The team is winning. Total football's working. The announcers, I love when the announcers carry like the storyline. Unfortunately, they have to do the heavy lifting about the team in the beginning of this episode, but it's Jamie's playing well, scoring goals, you know, a lot of excitement out of Richmond, which leads to, I bet Coach Lasso is ecstatic. And then we get sad Ted. And this is sad Ted, not just like rumpled Ted. His hair is fine, but he is sad.
Yeah. for sure. Anyway, he's sad because of the fact that Dr. Jacob or Jake and Rebecca are here in Richmond. So
yeah, we're going to refer to him as Jake from State Farm. That's what we're going to refer to him as during this episode. That's his official
Dr.
title.
Jake from State Farm or just Jake from State Farm?
Dr. Jacob from State Farm, I think, really rounds that joke out to make sense. Yes, he's sad because he's sitting across. There's only one pub. No, there's 3 restaurants in this entire city. There's the Taste of Athens, the Patio Date restaurant that multiple couples have gone to, and the pub. So they're at the pub. Ted is way too good for any of these people. I don't know that I could sit across the table this soon with my couples therapist who's now dating my ex-wife. And trying to give my kid quarters. I'm once again, we're discovering I am not Lasso level anything. I'm Julian level 10, and Julian level 10 is just angry and bitter. What happens here, though? He pulls in the process of getting quarters for Henry, who's there, and I guess the point is they're bringing Henry out. Henry's going to stay with Ted. They're going to go to Paris, but in the process of pulling out some quarters. There's magnets from the whiteboard, which we recognize, and then a green matchbook, which has significance.
And I'm wondering if we're going to get, clearly pulling at this whole Ted-Becca thread of, Rebecca pulling out the green matchbook. She thought it was a sign for her, but maybe all of these signs and things we've got from her psychic experience are going to kind of come true for Ted. Like he's going to see the matchbook. He's going to fall into water and flip upside down. I don't know what else they're going to do with it. The magnets were kind of goofy. I'm wondering if those have significance as well. I think I saw a screenshot online where it's Rebecca and Ted both sitting in the locker room, and they're both sitting behind one of like the Richmond lockers, and like one's red and one's blue. So maybe that is her and Ted. I don't know. But then this episode at the end, which we'll get to, but kind of plays on the whole maybe he's going to get back with Michelle angle. Like, I don't know what we're trying to, or what they're trying to play at with this, but clearly nodding to the audience with the Ted Becca bit.
Sure. I think I'm on record. I'm not rooting for Ted Becca. I am also on record that magic isn't real and that psychics aren't real. So I don't believe any of this stuff's going to happen. I'm a little bit worried about everyone in this show smoking because they're all carrying around matchbooks, which... we've discussed before. Matchbooks stay in the bathroom on the tank above the toilet for special reasons, and those shall not be discussed here. That corner, much like Julian's, gun corner, off limits. Toilet matches and gun corner, off limits. I just have a note here that says Jake is the worst. He must have done something in this scene where I was just like, Dr. Jacob of State Farm is the worst. Maybe it's the invite to Paris, or at least the surprise trip. I don't know. And once again, Ted is way too gracious to these chumps. We go from those chumps to Keely and Jack, the other chumps that are in bed. And Jack invites Keely very kindly to a polo match where I guess her uncle Gary, or whatever his name is, who owns Louis Vuitton, is going to be there. They seem very excited. This can only go wrong, is what I thought, because I've been to one polo match in my life, and it did not go well. So I just assume, even though magic isn't real, and neither are psychics, all polo matches lead to evil things. That's my stance.
I like how Keely thinks that she's going to be riding on a horse as opposed to just sitting there with a bunch of rich people enjoying the horses, and I don't know, like fixing their divots a la Pretty Woman. Because later on, Keely puts on the dress that is straight Julia Roberts from Pretty Woman.
Okay, that's fair. I did see 2 side-by-side photographs. I thought it was a stretch. One is, I don't remember that actress's name, and one is Keely Jones. So they're not the same, but it is what it is. Julia Roberts, that's the name I was looking for. Why don't you cut that in so I don't look like an idiot, rather than cutting stuff in that makes me look like an idiot, Tom? Do some good for me. Anyways, I'm sorry, Tom. I'm coming at you hard tonight.
Julian level 10 right there.
Julian level 10. Tom, I've told you this and I'll tell you it again. There's no one I'd rather be stuck under a couch hiding during an escape room than you, my man. So, all right. We go from there. Those chumps are in bed to a third set of chumps in bed, which is Nate and Jade. All I can say is everyone got married very quickly. They're all in the marital bed. seemingly doing marital things. I don't really understand, but I guess Jake from State Farm is going to propose in Paris. That relationship doesn't seem that old. So what I'm finding in the Lasso universe is people get married very quickly and they find themselves in bed, I'm assuming trying to conceive a son in order to carry on their family name. Is that still how it's done? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Anyways, I've had a lot of caffeine. And by that, I mean code word for vodka. Nate's putting in the effort here. Like, he woke up early, he brushed his teeth, he did all these things. Like, I don't know, Tom. I think I'm coming around on Nate.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Like, he woke up early. I think we find out he showered, he shaved, he brushed his teeth, he did everything and just got back into bed to pretend like he was still there. It's a funny little dynamic back and forth between them. But, I mean, all this Nate, Jaden stuff, again, it's fine. And I'm glad Nate is, finding a love and is finding something else to like live for as opposed to football and seemingly just hating Lasso.
Right.
But I mean, again, all this part of the storyline, it's quick, it's happening very fast, and is likely just giving us as an audience a little bit of peace to like Nate again after all the, vitriol that he's put us through.
Right. Yeah. And I like Happy Nate. And I like Jade. And despite the fact that they got married, she's refusing to use labels on their relationship. So I find that confusing. This whole thing about him waking up and doing all this stuff so he looks his best when she wakes up reminds me of, I'm going to get the show name wrong, but like the Fabulous Mrs. Mabel or whatever it is, the Marvelous Mrs. Mabel. There's a scene there where she has this whole routine where she puts on like a sleep mask and I don't know, we'll say cucumbers and all this stuff, but then wakes up in order to take it all off before her husband wakes up. And I found that very, very similar to Nate. But a little role reversal, if that makes any sense. You haven't seen that show, have you? I'm realizing you're not chiming in at all, so you don't even know what show I'm talking about.
I know the show. I've heard it's fantastic. I just haven't gotten around to it. Have you watched it all or just a couple?
I just watched that one scene. That's all I've
YouTube
seen.
Video?
No, I logged in on a TV I've never logged in before. I logged into Amazon Prime. I did the little code thing where it sends it to your phone. I picked my profile. I went and found the show. I fast forwarded all the way to that scene. I didn't even I did the slow fast forward. I found it. I watched that scene. And then I turned it off, logged out, and that's all I've seen of that show.
Okay.
I don't even know how I found that scene, Tom.
Would you recommend it?
That scene, yes. It's quite funny. Here's the crux of the episode, which I don't know where we got this from. Was there a writer strike, and this was like this storyline was shelved, and then it appeared? We're with Keely and Jack, and Keely finds out that a personal video of hers of a sexual nature was leaked. And then Jack explains, it's not just yours, there's a massive leak, and Jack's like, I'm going to take care of it. And since this is Jack Ryan of the Tom Clancy series, we know that she is going to take care of it if it's the last thing those terrorists do.
Yeah, and you figure she's going to use her, I don't know, super rich powers to somehow make it go away, but of course you can't. It's the internet, which I think she mentions later. But I'm with you, man. This is all just so jarring, and the storyline seems like it's ripped out of like the 2010s when, I mean, this happened. This was a big thing where a lot of celebrities got their like leaked photos and personal content put on the internet. But this whole idea that like nowadays, like you would have to apologize for this and say you regret taking these videos. And I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll get to it when Jack and Keely have these fights. But I was dumb. I didn't like it. And I didn't like when we get to the locker room and you get all these footballers, men's opinions about all of this, where all of it was just so forced and silly. And yeah, this just completely took me out of the entire episode. And yeah, I wasn't a fan.
Okay. I hear you. You loved it. It was your favorite part of the show. I am a good listener. the best listener, they say. The one thing I was listening, and you were talking a long time, so really all I was trying to do is think of jokes. You said super rich powers. You know, whenever someone's like, hey, if you could only pick one power, like fly or be invisible or like whatever, Tom, I'm on record. I have always said I want super rich power because then you can buy all the other powers. That's what's so special about that. So I think we're aligned. We both loved this episode and the storyline. Let's go to the locker room. This was, hey, there was some comedy in this episode, and this happened to be one of the comedies. Will is exploiting Henry for child labor while Roy, Beard, and Lasso all watch. No, it's Trent Grimm. They're all watching, and Roy makes this comment like, is this a game or child labor? And they just, like in unison, turn away. It was great. Henry was having a blast, and I love to watch Will exploit someone. It's wonderful.
Oh, it was great. Like, he just sits back in his like chair and is just lounging, drinking his green smoothie or whatever, and just loving life. It was great. Like, making a game out of everything that he's doing. I love this scene. It was great.
Right. Will's going to be an excellent parent. This is something you do with your kids when you need them to do something. You turn it into a silly game.
Yes.
And you're like, no, you got to fold the shirt down the center. Otherwise, the family pet may die. You do those sorts of games in order to get him to do work. Anyways, listen, Tom, every shirt I fold is incredible because that's a game my stepdad and I used to play.
And that's why you always leave a note.
That's why you always leave a note. Oh, man. I just want to, let's just go watch that. Anyways, I love Lasso. I love Lasso. All right. Ted the coaches are in the office. Ted, leaving his son to be exploited, is now really worked up about this whole trip to Paris. Mm-hmm. He's asking for the Diamond Dog's advice. And is this the first time we see Trent has kind of been in the adjacent office, but we haven't seen an official calling of the Diamond Dogs until now. And Trent, this is his first meeting, correct? They introduce him to the Diamond Dogs.
Mm-hmm. He's officially been like woofed in,
yeah. Woof, there it is, as the song by the Baha Men goes. Roy is in the other room, and I love that he can hear everything and just the constant shouting. I mean, when I think they're discussing the Diamond Dogs, Roy yelling in the other room is like, it's a living effing nightmare. It's so good. And
he is a Diamond Dog. Like, he just refuses to be in the room where it happens, right? Like, he's listening, he's paying attention, he nods.
He's providing,
He is a Diamond Dog.
Yes, even though Beard goes, Roy decided to reject the Diamond Dogs, or he says something very dramatic that I was like, I don't know, Beard. He's kind of in the pack, as we like to say. Speaking of someone running into the pack, Higgins has to run, I guess, one flight of stairs downhill, and this wins him, which is not a comment on his cardio, just the fact that gravity did most of the work, but that's fine. We discover, and I did think he jumped to this conclusion rather quickly, that they are going, that Dr. Jacob of State Farm is going to propose. They try to calm him down. They're like giving him some friendly advice about, hey, do you know this is happening? And there was something said here by Trent that was supposed to be profound, but I'd really like to dice it up a little bit. He says, you can't worry about something that hasn't happened yet. And it comes off, Trent Grimm, lovely human, comes off very profound. I started to think about it, and I was like, I would argue the only things you can worry about are things that haven't happened by definition. Because if they're happening and you're worrying about them, that's just like, I don't know, reacting to the situation. That's not worry. Like, no, that's like worry realized. I didn't. Worry by definition means something you're scared of it that might happen. Like, anyways, I got a little bit wrapped up in this, but I love to see the Diamond Dogs back. This was lovely. because
it was fun.
Yeah,
I like the ending bit where like everybody's like what they're signing off and they're doing their barks, and then Trent just doesn't know what to do, and it pans on him, and it just he gets the one woof. That was good.
Yep, it was lovely. And they do a great bit of writing here where they juxtaposition this against West Ham, where Nate is trying out his own diamond dog. And I think the funny thing that I don't feel like the show, like, I don't know, maybe the audience is smart enough, but it's like, hey, the diamond dogs work because they trust each other and they care about each other. Just bringing a group of guys that you've been mean to and like are forced to work for you and trying to get personal, like, you have to earn that trust in order to have the diamond dogs work. Where Nate is just like, hey, if I bring these 4 people, and Rupert tries to get Rupert to join, which
that was
is
so weird.
The craziest thing in the world. Does Nate not understand his dynamic with Rupert at all? Is Nate like this oblivious? I don't think he is. I think he understands human relationships. He's not a robot.
Yeah, I kept waiting. Like when he was waiting on the 4th person to come in, I'm like, who else do we have at West Ham that would make any sense? Like clearly you have the Higgins replacement in Roger, you have the Beard replacement in Disco, and I'm like, okay, we haven't met any other assistant coach. I'm like, Rupert makes no sense before he even mentioned the idea of Rupert not coming. It seemed dumb. Nate seems like he's a little bit smarter than this to think that Rupert would have any sort of care of this conversation.
Right. But, oh, man, now that I think about it, if Rupert had shown up and just had to listen to this, that would have been awesome. Rupert would have been so snarky and so mean and been like, what happened to the model I purchased you that you were dating for a little while? And I don't mean the model car.
It might have been better for the storyline had he been in there. Like it gives then Nate some sort of like means to start hating Rupert because we'll get to it in a bit. Like he has a means to like kind of tell Rupert off or whatever, and he still decides to, agree with Rupert and stay on the dark side a little bit. This could have been a good out for him.
Yeah, something I find a little bit strange is Nate as a character exists only in the scenes we see him in. Like the world is built in such a way where you don't feel like Rupert and him ever talk outside of a conversation we are shown. Right. And then he's never involved in the football team unless I don't know. There's just so many things that like these characters are meeting and it's like they're meeting for the first time. Like Disco and Roger brought up to this office. I know we've seen them kind of interact, but it's like, why would he think this conversation would work? I don't know. But we get more Disco, Tom. You and I mean, we wrote our respective senators. I wrote John McCain. You wrote, I don't know who your senator is, whoever runs Kansas City. We got our Disco. John McCain came down from heaven and said, you may have Disco. And we discover what about Disco, Tom?
Yeah, I was kind of bummed here, right? Like, we got the one introduction of Disco, and he seemed like a bit, like, kind of wacky, fun little coach that might have some quirks, but what does he do in this scene? He sits on the couch, he, like, frowns the whole time, and then eventually says, oh, yeah, I was divorced 3 times, never let them know how you feel, it's very expensive. Like, again, it was, like, this would have been a fun idea to bring in another fun character with a funny line, or I was kind of bummed they made him seem kind of like a jerk.
Right. No, he is a jerk. 4th time's the charm, though, Disco. Keep that in mind. Everyone says it when it comes to marriage. And the other piece is, I've given a lot of thought to that. Never let them know how you feel. It's very expensive line. Like, I guess Disco doesn't have a lot of tact. Disco is the type that will tell you what he's thinking, and that leads to a dissolution of marriage.
Disco Inferno, buddy.
Very nice. Very nice. I'd love to know what his spousal maintenance bill is every week. I'm assuming assistant coaches on Premier League soccer teams get paid relatively well.
I would imagine, yeah.
I also would imagine, but they don't have the super rich power that I'm going to get.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Get me Will Trent, ABC Tuesday.
I don't even know where he is.
Will Trent is back.
You thought you could hide forever? Time to come home.
the series that's being called one of the best network procedurals.
We're going to solve this case.
Featuring new cast member Gina Rodriguez.
I'm a prosecutor. We deal in truth and facts.
Maybe everybody should try that, huh?
Will Trent, the 2-part season premiere, begins Tuesday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Ted and Rebecca, they are chatting, and she's like, don't you have a team to train? And everyone in the audience is like, yeah, what happened to the soccer of it all? And then the show does a funny quick cut, and it's just Henry like playing keepy uppy with the soccer ball, and the whole team laughing.
Keepy uppy.
That's a Bluey reference, baby.
Well done.
Thank you, sir. Ted, who does Ted want to hire, Tom?
Ted wants to get a private investigator. Like, he goes super hot, super quick. And I mean, again, I don't like this Ted angle that we're getting. Like, he's just so over the top with, I mean, not protectiveness. I don't know if he's trying to get back with Michelle. I don't know why he cares this much. Like, he can't move on from it, I guess. And it's going pretty far out in left field with a private investigator and asking Rebecca, of all people, to look into it for him. Right. Yeah, I mean, I understand being, like, they were married a long time. I understand that hurting. But, you know, to hire a gumshoe to track down Carmen Sandiego, I don't know. We have a discussion about Oscar Wilde, which, Tom, I think it's appropriate since the show took an hour to give us a, PSA on nude photos. I think it's appropriate for us to take about 30 minutes to discuss our favorite Oscar Wilde quotes and just what he's meant to us as a Irish poet who died penniless in, Paris, based on his grave being there. So I'll let you go first. You tell me your top 3 Oscar Wilde quotes, and I'll tell you the one that I vaguely remember. Yeah, I mean, I think one of my favorites is some cause happiness wherever they go, others whenever they go. I've always liked that one. Yeah, no, that one's good. That's certainly... Experience is simply the name we give our mistakes. I feel like that's another good one. No, that's patriotism good. Is the virtue of the vicious. I feel like that's pretty good. Wow. Yeah, that makes sense for you since you hate America. No. My favorite Oscar Wilde quote is anything that's popular is wrong. And then my other one is Familia. But that may also be Vin Diesel from Fast and the Furious 1 through 10. I don't know. I get Oscar Wilde and Vin Diesel. Man, why can I not remember Vin Diesel's character name? I get Oscar Wilde and Dominic Toretto confused sometimes. Man, I shouldn't have taken all that cough medicine. I don't even have a cough, Tom. All right. Rebecca, for some reason, agrees to help. She's like, all right, sure. And I think this is just her way of, like, getting him out of the office so that, we should mention this is Biscuits with the Boss, right? Which we haven't seen in a while. But I think she's just trying to get him out of the office, and I don't think she plans on at all hiring a private investigator. I feel like there was a handful of things I read on Twitter that talked about this specific conversation being like what, and I think maybe in the later conversation where Rebecca tells him to, like, you know, don't focus on yesterday or whatever, but them kind of sounding like an old married couple, which I didn't get that vibe, but I don't know. Did you? Okay. No one talking about Oscar Wilde's death is an old married couple. It's two dudes on a podcast trying to sound smart. Anyways, the one, I mean, if you read into this, then I don't feel like the show really pointed this out, is you're essentially seeing where Rebecca was in season 1 with her issues with Rupert and, like, the obsessiveness there. Like, she understands what Ted's going through, but I don't know, they feel different, and so I don't know. I don't think it does Ted justice that he's so wrapped up in this. I mean, it's a better show if he, like, I don't know, puts on a fake mustache and buys a plane ticket and shadows them through Paris. Yeah. Like, how great would that episode be? Ted trying to be, he's all in his AFC Richmond tracksuits, like trying to be inconspicuous as he follows Michelle
and Dr. Jacob of the farm state around.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a lot of the stuff with Ted and not seemingly letting Michelle go is not seemingly very healthy. Like Ted is like almost like obsessive on all of this stuff, clearly trying to hire a private investigator to follow the ex-wife. Like this isn't healthy behavior. And I think Rebecca eventually sees that, but she's not necessarily helping him in this moment by saying, yeah, I agree, we should get a private investigator. It seemed out of character for Rebecca to agree to this.
Yeah. I see, the only part I disagree on is the obsessiveness. They were married, and the good book says they should be buried together in graves next to each other. I'm not advocating murder. I'm just saying of old age, happily in graves, as most people die happily in graves do.
Married and buried. Gotcha.
Married and buried together. We're at the law offices of KJPR, and Barb delivers I'm going to say a blank piece of paper based on how the show is going. Keely's drinking from an empty cup, and it's an apology statement that Jack had the lawyers rung up. And I was like, okay, so this is where this episode's going to go. She reads it. It's like I hope those lawyers are on retainer, because the amount of imagination and wit that went into this apology statement was, I'm going to say, zero. I don't know. And she doesn't like it, clearly. It's just like, I'm ashamed, I'm apologizing, which they didn't really do Jack any favors here. Like, if that's what I know she later on tries to just say, oh, that was the lawyers, but it's not helpful, that's for sure.
Yeah, Jack never really comes out and says, like, don't say this. She, like, in that scene they have, which we'll get to, she's just kind of toying around it, and then at the very end we get that jarring, like, big old argument that they kind of go back and forth. But when I first saw this, like, and I don't know, I'm jumping ahead, but, like, we'll get to the Keely and Rebecca situation. Rebecca says, like, oh yeah, that's just lawyer talk, like, oh, just, it'll be fine, just talk to her. Like, again, to me, that's out of what we see and the advice we normally get from Rebecca to Keely. Like, she wouldn't just say this is lawyer talk. She would say, hey, listen, you need to talk to Jack about this. This is not something that you should say or be embarrassed about by any means. It's just a lot of writing in this episode I felt was just very out of character.
Sure. And I think, my underlying thing with this is, like, Jack was in on this statement and she's playing it differently when she sees how, like, Keely responds negative to it. But Jack wants her, to give this exact apology. I also think maybe I'm misunderstanding what the law offices of KJPR do, but aren't they a PR firm? And so handling public relations, like a situation like this, isn't this what they do? Are there PR firms for PR firms? And to follow that thread a little bit farther, PR firms for PR firms for PR firms for PR firms, Tom? Somebody, oh man, I almost did a Jim Carrey, somebody stop me. But then I realized that was 30 years ago, and I'm too old to be somebody stop me. Anyways, I got there.
It's PR inception. You had it right.
We go from those PR firms to the locker room, which is where the team is now getting alerts on, I'm assuming, Facebook or MySpace, that these photos have been leaked, and they find out Keely's part of the leak, which gives us a couple of cuts to both Jamie and Roy being concerned. Mm-hmm. And then, Tom, I think this is the scene that both you and I had probably, and maybe the audience in America in general, I don't know, reach out to us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com, not to tell us anything other than what we want to hear, this was a weird scene. This was like once again, PSA on nude cell phone photos and sending them to the cloud. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to say about this.
It's just, yeah, I mean, again, I could care less what any of these locker room footballers have to say about this when, like, women are the ones that are exploited in this and have been historically exploited, and they have absolutely nothing to apologize for. It's dumb. I hated every moment of this scene, and it went on way too long. We talk about this show being an hour long. It has no need to be. We don't need all of these guys to talk about it. Like, the only thing this really is pushing, to your point earlier, is like the story of Jamie and Roy and how they both ultimately react to this. I could care less about what anybody else in this locker room cares about this.
Yeah. No, it's strange. There's a lot of once again, this is not this is not a normal locker room full of men. This is not how they communicate. I understand these are characters in the show. But I'm with you. I was like, what am I? Honestly, they cut this scene out and they're going to show it in schools to kids. And, maybe that's fine. Maybe like that's the use of it. But this is not what I need in my 60-minute, last season of a great show. Anyways, the only thing that got to me and the only thing I read into all this is I immediately went into my phone and I deleted all the pictures of my children because I wasn't really paying attention. Isaac kept shouting at people to delete all the photos in their phone. So, there goes the memories. I guess I'll just have to use my brain to remember what my kids looked like when they were younger. They grow up so fast, and I'll never know because the pictures are all gone. Thanks, Isaac. Thanks, TV show that I'm forced to podcast about by Apple. This leads to another weird moment. Like, Cullen leaves the locker room because he is deleting photos or looking over photos. Isaac, who I don't think of, like, Isaac's not a jerk. Like, they make him out to be kind of the heavy, like in hockey, they'd call him the goon. Like, he's the guy that beats up other dudes. But he's the one that's like, hey, no one should be looking at these. Everyone delete their photos. Like, it's about, like, treating those women right. Like, he makes that speech, and then he goes and he takes Isaac's phone in order to delete his photos. Tom, you were on a soccer team. I was on a soccer team before cell phones. Did the captain of the soccer team have the ability to delete photos and use your cell phone at will? What's happening here that I missed?
Yeah, I hate it. Like, I love Isaac's character. I love how he, like, seemingly never laughs at anything. He always plays everything deadpan. I think it's fun, but I hated this storyline. Like, we've got these beautiful moments with Colin and Trent and him, like, opening up and like expressing how difficult it is for him as a closeted gay man to, like, be a part of this team. And, like, all of this gets ripped away from Colin, and Isaac finds out about it. Like, I think it's just, it's horrible. And it would have been so much more beautiful if, like, Colin would have been able to come out in his own terms and not seemingly now in future episodes be forced to now address this with the team. Again, I don't think Isaac is going to be mean or vindictive or anything of it, but even the way they shot this, it made it seem like Isaac now is
upset.
I don't know, homophobic. Yeah, exactly, upset, and he just leaves as opposed to, like, then having a conversation with him. I just hated the way they treated this.
Right. Well, I don't know if you looked at the, like, cover photo for the next episode, but it's these two, and, like, they look upset at one another. Like Colin is looking to Isaac, and Isaac, like, won't look at him. Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, I'm excited for that episode. This will be fun.
Yeah.
I will step out of Julian's jail into Fashion Corner and just talk about Isaac's sweatsuit that he's wearing, which is just off the rails in this scene. Took my eye off the ball, so to speak. It looked like a group of teenagers had paintballed him, and he had let that paint soak into his sweatsuit, and he was wearing it around proudly.
Mm-hmm. The matching tops and bottoms is the great part.
Yeah, outrageous. There, folks, I went after Isaac. You're all welcome. All right, so we have from there, from the best scene in the episode to the next scene in the episode, we have that conversation that I think you brought up. It's Keely and Rebecca talking. And, they have a discussion here because one of the things you would say is, hey, in season 1, Jamie had topless photos of Keely in his locker for all to see. And it's almost like the show, I don't know if it's the show covering its tracks. I don't know if the argument is the argument's legitimate. I just don't know where it's coming from. But she brings up the point of, hey, I know that I'm topless on the internet, but there's a difference between the photos I agreed to and the photos that were stolen. And I understand that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. This felt like the show trying to change a little bit of history. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, in the way it's shot, in the way Rebecca is
You mean with the green screen windows in the back that make it look like they're in no place the show has ever been before? Go on, Tom.
Yeah, there wasn't any soccer balls hitting the glass and breaking it. Hannah Waddingham is such a great actress. The way they deliver it, the way they play this scene, they make it seem like she's giving such great advice. But again, I don't think this is how Rebecca would react to this and say this is all legal talk. She's giving Jack the benefit of the doubt, and maybe it is because she's trying to be nice to Keely and sees that the Keely and Jack relationship as of, I guess, the current moment is still going well, and she doesn't want to spoil it. But I feel like if Rebecca really saw this as a statement that was given from Jack, she would have warned her a little bit more and said, you need to talk to her about this. This is not normal. And this is why, again, I think this is a story from 10, 15 years ago, whatever, where women were meant to feel shamed for this happening when this has nothing to do and they have nothing to be ashamed about. It's the horrible, terrible people that steal and pirate all this stuff and then leak it out for their own purposes. Those are the people that need to be apologizing, not any of these women. Right.
Yes. Tom, I think it's fair. We are on record. We are pro these types of... Ooh, I don't know if that joke will work either. I couldn't. No. Anyways, Jimmy will fix it in post. So, two things I want to comment on. I want to touch two things that you said, if I have your permission. I think as an audience we can see where this is going with Jack. We can see it going bad. And so the show is almost like, hey, if we throw Rebecca in Jack's corner and we give her a vote of confidence, because Rebecca has this line where she says, I think you should give Jack the benefit of doubt, and she's going to surprise you with how great she is in this situation. And so as an audience member, we're already seeing where Jack is going with this. And so when Rebecca says it, you're like, okay, maybe the show is going to show us. And they do kind of do it in the next... Before we get to that last scene, they do try and make Jack seem like she's handling this well. But I think with the show doing that, they take us out of what you would say Rebecca's normal response would be, or how the character's been written previously. So I agree with you. I agree with you there 100%. And I don't remember what the second thing was that I wanted to touch on, so I'll just touch that one thing. Okay. This leads to Keely in the parking lot going to her sweet ride. Roy stops her. He's very apologetic. He's asking about her. And then he makes the mistake of asking who the video was for, which I was like, okay, I don't know. Would Roy do that? Once again, with the character that we know is Roy, who's been super supportive and super kind of supportive of women, would he do that? I don't know. I mean, my gut is no, but this is what the show did for us. They chalk this up as kind of a slip from Roy, because as soon as he does it, he knows he's done something wrong, and then he's, saying fudge over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, again, this was, to me, one of the dumbest moments of the episode. This is not Roy. This is not how he would react. This is the show forcing this moment to push Keely away from Roy and push Keely towards Jamie, with Jamie's kind of apology and stuff at the end. Which, again, it's fine if your arc was changing Jamie to the arrogant footballer and, selfish guy that he was in season 1 to a more loving and caring and like respectful person in season 3, and then him getting back with Keeley. I think that's fine. That's a great storyline. But to write such a silly line to what I'm assuming they're doing is trying to push Roy away from Keeley and that relationship they established in season 2. I thought this was just so silly and so out of left field and so not Roy from what we've seen throughout the whole entire series. This scene completely took me out of the episode if I was in it at all.
Sure. I think what the show's doing is letting us know that people don't grow or change. And so by the end of this show, everyone will be exactly where they were, relationship-wise and personally. And we'll all realize this was a horrible lie just to make us buy iPhones and subscribe to Apple Plus. And by subscribing to Apple Plus, I mean getting your Gam to buy it. And then stealing her password and her Werther's hard candies while she was sleeping. But justifying it by putting the cigarette out that she fell asleep with in her hand so that makes you feel less guilty. This is not something that actually happened. This is clearly something I'm coming up with on the fly.
I'm going to do you a favor and not dive into that one.
Thank you, sir. Gam's alive and well. Her finger is a little burnt, but once again, not all burnt. So let's go from there to a quick scene where Jack and Keeley seem cool, and we're like, awesome. We know this is going to work out. Thanks, show. And then we're at Ted and Henry, and Ted is reading, and I didn't recognize the book, but unless it's written by Oscar Wilde, I probably haven't read it. He starts to probe about Dr. Jacob of Farm State, and you can see, like, he doesn't feel good about it. Like, he clearly doesn't want to affect the relationship that might develop between stepdad and Henry. So I understand what they were doing here. Like, in this episode, Ted is vulnerable, and he's making some decisions based out of this panic that he feels. I guess the divorce to him was not the final point. It's if Michelle finds someone else, that's where it like really ends for Ted. And so it was but he eventually recognizes, hey, this is not something I should put on Henry, and he moves on.
Well, does he though? I feel like Henry just passes out after he asks like a pointed question about, do you like Jake, or are you guys getting along? And he kind of almost gets saved by the fact that Henry passes out and falls asleep.
Right, but I mean, I think I read somewhere that they cut the scene where Ted is holding the pillow over Henry's face, and he's like, "Tell me, when does he leave? Does he come back in the morning?
Did you order the code red?
Did you order the code red?" And then Henry sleeps into that sweet, my parent put a pillow over my face sleep.
That took a turn.
We call that Julian sleep where I'm from. Anyways, we go back to Jack and Keeley. I think this is where Keeley comes back, and she's got a fancy hat, and she's like, hey, shopping solves all things, which I think is another thing the show is trying to teach us. And Jack's like, all right, let's go kill a day together and do crazy, fun stuff. I can be wild. And it's like, awesome. All right. Can't wait to get back to this storyline. And then the show mercifully ends our Jack and Keeley time and takes us to a wonderful moment where we have Henry, Coach Beard, and Ted at breakfast. And Beard is wearing a what, Tom?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know.
He's wearing the apron. He's wearing that sweet apron as he's making breakfast. What did I say? Did I say Ted? I meant Beard. Did I mess it up, or did you mess it up? Who messed it up? Who ordered the code red, Tom? Which of us is to blame in this moment? Joke's on you. We're being recorded right now, so you tell me what happened. Who did this wrong?
We could pull back the tape, but if I'm editing, I will not pull back the tape. I don't remember. I admittedly only watched this episode once, so I don't recall this specific scene and Beard and or Ted and or Henry wearing an apron.
Okay.
They could have all been wearing aprons for
all three of them are wearing aprons, both front and back aprons, which is a real choice, but it shows their distrust of one another as chefs because they're afraid someone's going to stab them in the back. I assume aprons stop knife blows, but I might be wrong. They are discussing about what Henry wants to do. They all have the day off. Anyways, I just like Beard as like the crazy uncle, like his role in that. He does, once again, like the shining light of this is Beard has some great stuff that he does in this. And so once again, don't throw this episode out with the baby or wait, the bathwater. I don't know what that saying is. It never made any sense to me, but it's fun to see them go through this stuff because Beard is laying heavily into, hey, do you want to go do the Jack the Ripper tour? We get chased. We get to see where people were murdered. And Ted's like, clearly you have not raised a child before because that sounds terrible.
Yeah, I mean, this is fun banter with Ted and Beard and the son. Yeah. It's just fun. Like, it's the kind of stuff that I'm here for and much more enjoy. I do appreciate the fact that Henry eventually lands on going to a game, and then Beard looks it up and finds out it's a West Ham game, which I think the audience finds out in the next scene. But I like Beard saying, like, okay, I got to go home and change first. And the fact that he changes into, like, his normal Richmond garb when he's on the sideline, I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I've got to think Henry knew it was a West Ham game, right? Like, Henry's a smart kid. He did the thing with Ted where he's like, hey, why isn't Nate's figure next to you? Like, I think Henry recognizes the reconciliation that needs to happen between Nate and Ted for, like, closure and that it's good for them. Am I giving this, I don't know, is he 4? This 4-year-old too much credit?
I think you are. I think that's poetic, but I think this kid is too young to know or understand that idea or realize that there's that much animosity between Nate and Ted at this point. But, I mean, certainly the show does.
Okay, can I touch on something for a second? He's in a West Ham jersey. Henry is.
Not at this moment. No,
at the
not
game,
at breakfast.
though. At the game.
No, at the game. Yeah.
He's in
so
a
they
West
go
Ham
to the
jersey.
game, and like because he's
You think
Henry,
they're paying stadium jersey prices as the coaches of AFC Richmond? You think they went into the sports shop at the stadium, went, hey, what size are you? I know you're going to grow out of this in a year. Yes, I'd like to pay 300 pounds or euros. I'm never quite sure. Gold nuggets for that West Ham jersey. And the person at the shop's like, no one ever buys anything here. If you leave the stadium, it's 50% cheaper at the shop down the door. And they're like, no, this boy, Henry, needs a West Ham jersey, even though, once again, he's going to hit a growth spurt next week. And this is going to be just a rag that we dry the car with when we wash it. You think that's what happens, Tom? That's what I'm hearing from you. All of those details I heard from you when you made that statement.
100%. Ted Lasso is the guy that buys his kid a Christmas drone as a guilt gift. He is 100% buying Henry a West Ham guilt gift. Because, again, Henry doesn't know better. Henry just, he loves Nate. He supports Nate. And, you know, and again, I appreciate that Ted, like, ultimately doesn't care. And when they yell at him on the sidelines, they give a wave. Ted just kind of gives a little, like, kind of shoulder shrug. And it's a beautiful little moment. And Nate even, I don't know, he's kind of taken aback at first, but ultimately loved it. Loved the idea that they were there. And I think West Ham ultimately wins. So it didn't hex Nate. It didn't mean anything. It was a fun little moment.
Right. Yeah. I wish Nate had given him a little bit more, but
like the finger.
What?
Like the finger?
Yeah. No. Like a howdy do, like a big wave, maybe a salute, maybe a little where they jump and click their heels together. We did get some more of our guy Disco in this scene too, though, and it solidified that he's a bad guy. Anyways, we're at mini golf. Tom, you love mini golf, don't you? If you could play mini golf professionally, that's what you would choose.
So great. If I'm on vacation, I'm going to try to find a mini golf place. It's lovely.
Yeah, mini golf's a good time. I'm terrible at it. I always hook it, I think is what they say, when I use my driver off the tee, and then I get escorted out of the Cracker Jacks facility. Jack runs into an old friend who's at some sort of bachelorette party. introduces Keely, doesn't use the label girlfriend, seems to be ashamed of this woman in her pretty woman dress and large Kentucky Derby hat. And this is leading to... all of this is building towards the final scene, but you can tell that Keely's not real happy, but then she brushes it off when I think Jack offers her money to play more holes of golf, I think.
Yeah, they start like saying they're going to bet on the next couple holes, and Keely just kind of like laughs it off like it's not a big thing. But you can see it's a big thing to Keely, and it's starting to raise some red flags for her. But they're kind of paralleling these stories of labels with Nate and Jade, and how they're not labeling that, and now Jack is declining to label this relationship. And I'm wondering if these leaked videos didn't come out, would Jack have then labeled this and said, this is my girlfriend? Like, because she ultimately at the end seems ashamed because of Keely's leaked videos and not because of whatever else. I don't know. I didn't like the scene. It seemed crazy forced with her running into a friend who's having a bachelorette party at a mini golf. Like, I mean, I don't know. It just seemed forced.
Tom, I've got news for you. I've never not run into an old friend while playing mini golf. It's impossible to swing a cat on a mini golf course without hitting an old friend.
That's why you're not good at mini golf. You're using cats.
Yeah, well, the cats are alive, which makes it real difficult. My question to you, Tom, as an avid mini golfer, what's your favorite game? Is it like best ball, skins, McGillicuddy, Lionel Coogan's, Nike? What version of mini golf are you typically playing? One and done, pick it up, put it down. What version? What are you typically doing?
This is great. I mean, you had a lot of terms there. I mean, I'm just a classic skins guy, I think, for mini golf, and then you have to play whoever gets the most hole-in-ones is the ultimate winner.
Okay. Yeah, I do skins. That's why the cats don't like it.
Oh, God.
All right. We're at West Ham. We have this quick scene where Nate is getting a text from Rupert, and it's like, hey, I'm sorry about Ted being at the game. That'll never happen again. He starts to write, hey, not a big deal. I thought it was funny. And then he's like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be a bad guy because it's Rupert. Delete. Control-Alt-Delete. Yeah, let's make sure it won't happen again. Sent. And I'm like, okay. Are we still doing this? Like, right. I guess maybe Nate has to play to Rupert in a certain way, but like the show's giving enough of the Nate we remember and liked, or at least that you liked and I kind of endured. Like, I don't know. Why are we doing this? Is this just like, is Nate bad because of the peer pressure from Rupert? Is that what the show is trying to tell us? Because after a little while, guess what? It's just Nate. Like, you can't blame it all on Rupert. So, I don't know. I agree.
Like, we've talked about before, like, Nate is around Rupert. Like, Rupert rubs off on Nate, and he's bad. But, like, this is an instance where Rupert's not there. It's just a text message. Nate didn't have to respond. Maybe his initial one where he's like, happy-go-lucky. It was no problem. I actually thought it was funny. Like, he could have changed it to something more generic, but instead he goes, like, full bore Rupert and said, like, yeah, don't ever let this happen again. It was just too much, and there's 5 episodes left in this season. Like, let's turn this arc around that we know you're clearly setting up. Right. It's silly. It just I didn't like it.
Man, I can't wait for the finale when they just shatter all of the niceness and it's just like, guess what? Everyone's hooked on heroin and they murdered some dudes. So thanks for thinking Lasso was a positive show, dummies. The world's bleak and you're all gonna die soon. And it's just like,
but we'll get what we really want: the season 4 murder mystery with Higgins, Detective Higgins, where
the lady from the after party comes in and tries to solve it. Everyone's
Sherlock
dead,
Higgins
by the way.
And John. I was gonna say Holmes, but it's Will Holmes, I guess.
Yeah. I'm with you. Should have gone on that Jack the Ripper tour. All right, we're outside the pub. We have got a gentleman playing music, and those gentlemen, which we learned from season 1, are called something very specific, Tom.
They're called buskers, which I thought was fun. I like the idea of bringing these guys back because they were featured prominently in kind of that Christmas episode where they're kind of singing a song and Rebecca and Ted are listening and Rebecca gives them the big tip. I like the idea of these buskers just kind of hanging out and singing jams right outside the pub.
Yeah, but this isn't the same guy that he brings in for the charity dinner, right? This is a different
new guy, new busker.
Right? Okay, yep. New busker. Busker Bluth, they call him. Old Buster Bluth. You know, you can't do that on the balcony, buddy. Mom says it's too windy. Oh, Buster Bluth. All right. Hey,
I really hope there is a segment of our audience that also are big fans of Arrested. Otherwise, some of these jokes are falling on deaf ears.
Tom, I cannot say it enough or too strongly. I do not care. Arrested Development is for me and me only. If other people missed out on it, shame on them.
As Rebecca would say, shame. Shame.
Shame. Right. Oh, great. Now we got to bring the Game of Thrones audience in. Perfect. Lasso is the perfect intersection of Game of Thrones and Arrested Development. Oh, man. Anyways, all right. Hey Jude is playing. Hey Jude, I think, is a Rolling Stones song. I don't know. Unless it was Christian music, I didn't know it when I was a kid, so who knows. Rebecca is like, hey, Ted, let's talk. This is a nice cut scene where it's Ted and Rebecca on the phone, but then we're getting Beard and Henry talking, and we'll hit Rebecca and Ted first, which is she finally gives him the advice of hey, no private investigator, let this go. She's your ex. What should you care? Focus on your son. You're there with him. You should not be obsessing about this. Don't let her live rent-free in your house. Wait, no, in your head. Crap. Cut that, Jimmy, and fix it. You got it. Thanks, Jimbo. Anyways, and then she has that line. I'll let you deliver it. And your best Rebecca voice, please.
Stop letting yesterday get in the way of today.
I'm sorry, did Wallace and Gromit just join us? Wallace, big fan, man. Thanks. Oh, you brought Gromit. Oh, wonderful. Gromit doesn't talk, though. Incredible work, Tom. It's great to have Rebecca Welton with us today. Oh, man. Hey, get ready, because I'm going to make you sing Hey Jude here soon in Rebecca's voice. So I hope you're all about it. But no, I think the nicer cut of this, it's great advice from Rebecca. It's good to see her back in form, where she wasn't for Keeley, but she is for Ted. But we have a great moment where, Beard, being a stand-in uncle for Henry, is hey, do you know what this song's about? And I'll let you talk through this, Tom. You have we've talked about it before, you have a long, deep history for the Beatles, so I feel it only appropriate to turn the Hey Jude conversation over to you.
Yeah, it's a beautiful conversation, and you see Beard seeing the struggle in Henry's when he sees Henry's looking longingly at Ted, who's on the bench across the street, not paying attention to Ted, and Henry doesn't get to see his father very often. So to see his father just go away and do something else was difficult, and I love the way that Beard steps in here. But yeah, Hey Jude it's a beautiful song, and the general idea is that he's kind of singing a song to his friend Jude, who's a boy his parents are going through a divorce, which fits very well within the series and what they're trying to do here. But I love the way that Beard kind of stepped in and almost kind of filled the gap and gave Ted, almost bought Ted time to be able to kind of come back and then join and kind of fix this little wrong that he had, and then ultimately sing the song together with everybody.
And I think it is important, if Ted and Michelle say to Henry, hey, we're going through this, but we love you, I think there is some power in someone who is outside of the parental relationship being hey, I want you to know you have two parents that love you. When you're not here, your dad is thinking about you. I think that is important for a child or anyone. It's when someone compliments your kid and they don't have to, or someone compliments your spouse or a family member when they don't have to. It goes a long way because I don't know, as someone who's terrible with compliments and taking them or giving them, the importance of someone who has there's nothing owed to them or they have nothing to gain by saying it. To hear that to me is a compliment that is worthwhile. But we are going way too far into Julian therapy corner, so I'm gonna back that one up a little bit. I do want to say this.
But wait, real quick.
Go ahead.
Julian, your dog Bandit is an amazing dog and very well behaved.
That's fine. Bandit's, he's untrainable, and he is a crazy dog. I love him, Tom, but I don't accept that compliment. Anyways, on behalf of my dog, I do not accept that compliment.
He wouldn't agree to it either.
To all the children he's wounded that have come over, I do not accept that compliment. Anyways, I want to say this before we go too far. Tom got the Beatles quarter because we've probably talked about it before, but Tom's dad, I'm sure Tom's okay with me sharing this. Tom's dad was in a Beatles cover band, and Tom grew up on the Beatles. So what's fun about Tom is when we were younger, getting in his car was always somehow turned to the oldie station, and Tom knew all the words to the songs. And it was like, how do you know these? And Tom would be like, I don't know. I just know them. And so that's a little bit about my boy Tom, who I love to death. But
it just seeped into the brain somehow. I feel like, of course, all the big Beatles hits I know, but then deep cuts would come on and I would know every lyric. I'm like, how do I know this?
Yes.
I'm just singing them. It's
I'm some kind of messiah, some sort of Beatles messiah. I have too much power. Unfortunately, he hasn't monetized it yet to become super rich power. But anyways, and I've always heard, is this apocryphal, Tom? Maybe you know this. I mean, the song is for Julian Lennon, right? But Hey Julian is not all that easy to sing, so he changed it to Hey Jude. Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah, too many syllables. You can't do that
it's a
fun
terrible
little thing
name.
at the end. No. Yeah, Julian is just a terrible.
Yeah,
terrible.
Well, we should outlaw it. Unless popes. Popes can be Julian, but no one else. Lennons and popes. Those are the only people that can be Julians. All right. So, oh, man. We've given this episode more than it gave us, I'll be honest. That's probably a terribly arrogant thing to say, but that's how I feel in this moment, Tom. All right. Keely and Jack. Jack gets a new statement. She's like, hey, the lawyers stayed up all night. They said, the phrase now is, I double apologize. Keely is not on board. They fight, and you could see it through the thread of the episode, but this is really Jack blaming Keely.
Yeah, just she turns heel and just shames Keely for what she did. Oh, you never should have took those in the first place. This is not Keely's fault. It's so dumb, and how quickly this turns, and the way she leaves and says I'm not coming back. It was just way too much, and and speaking frankly, I'm glad they're moving away from the storyline because I didn't like it anyways. I thought it was always, we talked about it, it's a means to an end to either have Keely work back with Roy or Jamie, it seems like. But I also hated the idea that all of this love bomb conversation, it meant nothing. All these presents and everything else, I guess that was all just a red herring to think that's what was going to break up the relationship. But no, it's everything that just happened in this one episode. So we were just bound with a completely new storyline that ultimately ended their relationship.
Yeah. I thought they were going to go the distance, Tom. I thought I saw a lot of good in that relationship. A lot of silk pajama shorts and weird white blazers for mini golf. Like they were a king of comedy. I guess it was all for naught, right?
Yeah.
We're back with Nate and Jade. They have a lovely moment where she decides she will be his girlfriend, which, once again, that feels like a demotion because they got married, because they are sharing a bed. So I don't understand. I do think it's funny that she points out, hey, didn't you win today? Why don't you look happy? She's like, you should enjoy your victories, which I think is important. But then we see Nate smile. When do we see Nate smile, Tom? What brings on a Nathaniel Shelley smile?
Yeah, I mean, he's looking at the picture of Ted, Henry, and Beard kind of on the sideline, which seems odd that this is a big news article that gets featured, that another coach happens to go to another coach's game. But again, I like the moment. I like what they're doing with Nate and trying to bring him back in the fold. So, yeah, it's great. We'll leave it at that.
I don't know. If Bill Belichick was holding up Steve Belichick in the stands at a Philadelphia game, I think that would probably make the papers in Worcester or Boston. You're welcome for all of those.
Nailed it. Accent
Once
work is
again,
on point.
The cough syrup is starting to hit a little harder, so I've got some thoughts. We're with Keely. Jamie shows up to check in. Very nice of him. Hey,
can I ask before you
go
get
ahead.
too far into this?
You can ask whatever you want. It's your podcast. It's your podcast that you're a guest on because it's my podcast. It's our podcast.
Did you see
We're
this
both
coming?
guests on our podcast, Tom.
Okay. Did you see this coming?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's like I saw this coming from a mile away. The idea of Jamie coming to, again, I don't want to say to her rescue, but like Jamie coming to see how she's doing and apologizing. Like, they kind of filmed it like where his back was to the door when she answers, like, oh, who's it gonna be? But of course it's Jamie.
Yeah, no, I think they shot the back is of Roy, but then they do some trickery and they swap him out with Phil Dunphy of Modern Family. No, I saw this because, I mean, the way he reacts in the locker room when they find out it's Keely and the way he protectively holds his fanny pack that he has strapped across his chest, I assumed this was going to happen. Also, Tom, I figured out the Prestige. If you don't think I knew this was coming, come on, give me some credit, man. The Prestige. They were dead the whole time. Anyways, spoilers. Sorry. You're welcome. Go watch Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. Guess what? They're dead the whole time in that one, too. Memento, dead the whole time. I can't stop. I love Christopher Nolan. They're all dead. Tenet, dead. The Dark Knight, dead. The Dark Knight Rises, dead. The Dark Knight Returns, dead. Batman Forever, dead. Joel Schumacher, dead. Oh, man, you need to stop laughing because I'll stop.
You're referencing an M. Night Shyamalan twist for all of Christopher Nolan's movies.
I don't know who M. Night Shyamalan is. Anyways, the best bit in this is him blaming his email and her being like, oh no, your password was password. And I don't believe this part. He goes, I thought I'd fool him because I used 2 S's. Listen, the word guy, we learned he's a wordsmith. He knows the definitions of things. We don't think password was on his word of the day calendar. He knows how to spell it. I don't know. This show was all over the place. Much like a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah, I mean...
Dunkirk. I think I'm out. Don't give me time to think of any more. Let's finish. Finish, Tom. Finish them. Karate Kid.
Stop. Make it stop. Okay. Here we go.
Yep.
Yeah. This was... I can't stop. Okay. This part was an odd, I guess, revelation. Like, the idea that these pictures or videos that Keely was sending were for Jamie, I think was fine, and it makes sense, and they had a relationship, and that was a very sexual relationship like he experienced in season 1. But the idea that these had to leak or these came out because of Jamie's ignorance, I thought was kind of like almost too much.
Sure.
I didn't like that it was seemingly Jamie's fault that these kind of came out. It didn't seem necessary for the story outside of him, I guess, apologizing again that it was him that pushed this out. I didn't really care for that bit, and I'm with you about the 2 S's and password. While comical and funny, it's not what they've kind of shown us that, you know, he's a much smarter person nowadays. So
Right. And I actually didn't even think about the blame, like, oh, well, that is Jamie's fault, because she deflects early where she's like, no, this is not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. But yeah, to your point, the show is kind of being like, oh, this guy's an idiot, and that's why this stuff leaked.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I didn't think about it until this moment, but...
Well, and again, I think it's just the dumb double standard of, like, these pictures being leaked, and, like, I would imagine there's probably nude pictures of Jamie probably in the phone as well that probably got leaked, and they make absolutely no mention of it, and I would argue, like, a famous football player getting leaked images and nudes or whatever else being sent out would probably be a big story, but the show cares nothing to touch on that.
Yeah, I'll do some research once we get off here. I'll see if Jamie Tartt's got any out there for the podcast that we're about to end. I'll do the research. Let's finish this off. We've got a scene here where Michelle and Dr. Jacob of Farm State come back, and her ring finger is empty. I did play the game where I tried to see her hand the whole time, and the show very cleverly hid it until the moment they wanted to reveal it. And we discover that she has a flesh-covered engagement ring. So I did think this was interesting. They have Henry ignore Jake as he gets in the car. Jake tries to give him the old pound, and Henry ignores him. And then he almost leans into Michelle, and there's not a lot of intimacy there in terms of no kiss. They certainly don't make love on the sidewalk before getting into the cab. So I think you probably felt the same way I did, because then Michelle looks back. She does the old look back over the shoulder, and Ted's in the window. And so you're wondering, okay, maybe that dissolution of marriage will be solutioned into a marriage.
Yeah, I mean, they make Jake from State Farm like a doofus before these scenes even hit, where he's trying to take pictures of the phone booth for some reason and fixing the camera because the old people are holding it in landscape as opposed to portrait. It was a bit weird and kind of out of place. I feel like Ted's look back at the end too, where he looks out, he sees that, okay, maybe the relationship isn't perfect like he has in his head, but when he kind of goes back into his flat and then it kind of cuts to black, he almost kind of gives this look I don't know if is it closure? Is he happy this is happening? Is it that he's now able to kind of turn away and this gives him some sort of sense of calm? I don't know where they're going, but I'm with you about the whole Ted Becca thing. I feel like the show is pushing more the rekindling of this relationship, because I don't think Ted is still going to be in London at the end of the season and the end of this series. I think he's going to go back, and if he's going to go back, they're trying to set up some sort of rekindling of the Michelle marriage and relationship.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's ultimately a reconciliation there. I gotta be honest, I hate Michelle, but I'm kind of rooting for that for Henry's sake. If that's, I don't know if that's a terrible thing to say, but that's what I mean, I'd take that over him and Rebecca ending up together. That doesn't.
It just doesn't make sense, right? Why would Rebecca leave England? We know Ted needs to go back and live with Henry, right? He needs to be a father figure for him, and there's no reason why Rebecca would leave, I guess.
Right.
It's just, I don't get it.
Yeah, maybe Rebecca adopts Henry, and then she raises him in Kansas City, and the next 3 seasons of this show are a British lady in Kansas City trying to run... I don't know, a farm? I don't know what the equivalent of a premier soccer team in Kansas is.
I'd watch that.
I most certainly. If Hannah Waddingham is signed on, yeah, I'm on board. Anyways, let's move on from the dissatisfaction we felt from this episode. Although there were some gleaming lights and some fun moments. I'm interested. What do we have left? We've got 4 episodes left?
That was 8. We've got 9, 10, 11, 12. 4 episodes left, yeah.
Okay. That seems like the number that I said a minute ago when we were discussing it, but I'm glad we got there. I don't have any big predictions. I don't feel like this episode, other than getting rid of Jack, which we knew was going to happen, did this... I didn't have a fear that Jake and Michelle were going to get engaged until this episode brought the fear and then took the fear away. So, right. I don't know.
This whole episode was just a relationship push. They just pushed all these relationships that a lot of them we didn't necessarily care as much about. They just pushed them forward and changed some of the dynamic a little bit, but it didn't move our overall storyline in terms of what Richmond is doing. I guess they won a couple games in the very beginning, little exposition dump kind of bit, but yeah, I mean, I just want to get more back to the soccer and the team and the dynamic that they're going through, but I mean, based on what they set up here, I'm sure we're going to get more cliffhangers with Isaac and Colin and some of the fallout, I guess, with Keely, Jamie, and Roy. So we'll see, man. Again, I still love this show. I love the parts when it's good, but I think this show is just being a victim of its own success. And I think even Brendan Hunt said at one point, like when asked about the hour-long format and why they're doing more, he was like, well, Apple seemed to not really care, so we just kept doing it. But I think this is just too much of the writers trying to do too much. And probably liked season 1 so much is because it was a much tighter, fun comedy as opposed to this heavy-handed drama that throws these plot lines just seemingly out of nowhere for whatever reason.
Yeah, and I'll never understand in a show that has such a great like original cast and like team why we bring other people into it and like they make us like Keely and Jack. Like I don't understand. I don't know. It feels like we spent a lot of time on that and we ultimately knew where that was going to end. Mm-hmm. And then just to like, the show at its core was not a soccer show, but the sports mattered, like the team mattered. And then this one was about nude photos being leaked and like, who's to blame? Which, I don't know. I felt like I need someone behind the wheel that can steer this back to what it was, is what I'm looking for. And that person is Lionel Cougans. When you're sitting out there on a warm summer day and you need something refreshing to drink, or you want a show that's gone a little bit off the rails to come back to the rails on a hot summer day, Lionel Cougans. Summer Shandy. The most refreshing beer this side of the Mediterranean. I'm bad at geography. All right, Tom, hit them up. People that are still listening to us, we appreciate you. Those of you that engage, those of you that send us emails, we enjoy it. Good to hear from Barrett, and not good to hear from Bry Guy. But for those of you that have questions, concerns, or comments that Tom will likely read and then pass on to me, maybe, if they're good, you can email us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. Rate and review us at Apple Podcasts. I think you can subscribe on Spotify. You can do all of those things. They're helpful. Give to charity. And now Tom's going to tell you about social media and why it's good for you. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Team Binge or Team Binge Podcast. Again, we appreciate all the folks that are playing along with us, and again, we want to know what people are thinking of this. We certainly have our opinions, but it seems like this is a more divisive season in terms of what they're kind of doing with some of these storylines. So we're interested to see, like in our audience, what you guys have been thinking of this show so far, especially this episode. I think, but
right. Again, if I could hop in, Tom, if we missed something, like if there's something here that Tom and I both like just missed, and this episode was important in some way, maybe not important is the wrong word, but maybe we just like missed the boat on this. I think we're both open to hearing another opinion, but we're also open to hearing, hey, you guys were right. That we're not gonna ever turn down that piece of mail, unless it doesn't have postage. Then unfortunately federal law requires us to turn it away.
Fact.
All right, well, with that, I've been Julian.
And I have been Tom. And in Tenet, they were dead the whole time. Bye, everybody.
I love it.